Good morning. My name is Captain Chris Hall, and I'm Vice President, Operations and Harbour Master at Port St. John. Thank you for attending this first session of Port Days 2021, which deals with the Westside Modernization Project and the future port. Our panel session will be hosted by Mr. Paul Harquail, and it is my pleasure to introduce Paul to you today. Morning, Paul.
Morning.
Paul is a bilingual partner in the St. John office of Stewart, McKelvey and chair of the firm's Maritime and Transportation Practice Group. Paul's practice focuses on maritime and transportation law, as well as insurance and corporate-based litigation, tax litigation, and environmental law. His clients include P&I clubs, insurance, and transportation companies. Paul is consistently recognized by a number of industry publications as a leader in maritime law and environmental law. He is an associate of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. Yesterday, Paul was elected the president of the Canadian Maritime Law Association. He's the first New Brunswicker to hold that position. Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
Paul is also chair of the St. John Seafarers Mission Board of Directors. Before I turn the mic over to Paul and our panelists, I would like to offer some context for that discussion by playing a short video that provides an overview of our work to date on the Westside Modernization Project and the main deliverables of that project. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Port Days. We will start the video with some footage taken a couple of months ago that shows an overall view of the existing Rodney and Navy Island terminals operated by DP World St. John. One of the first deliverables was a modern, efficient, and safe means for handling large volumes of refrigerated containers. Noted here are what we refer to as reefer towers. Refrigerated containers must be plugged into shoreside power when on terminal, and this new facility creates an additional 288 electrical plugs. And now onto the marine portion of the project. In this shot, you will see views of the creation of a large and complex retaining wall comprised of pipe piles and sheet piles, which will serve to retain soils behind the new wharf. These retaining walls are now completed, and finishing works on the deck are in the final stages. Running in parallel was the construction and placement of the 8 caissons that form the backbone of the new wharf. These images show the vast scope and complexity of this part of the project. In this image, we have all 8 caissons completed and stored at Pier 3 on Rodney Slip, awaiting deployment. In this segment, we see 2 different caissons being deployed to final location. Positioning tolerance was in the order of a few inches, requiring the use of many tugs, workboats, and other equipment. After the caissons were placed, they were filled with rock, and additional rock was applied on top to bring the new wharf to its approximate finished height. This view also shows a dredge preparing a mattress of crushed rock that the caissons rest on. With all 8 caissons in place and final dredging of the berth pocket complete, we are now into the next stage, which is infilling behind the caissons, building the upper portion on top, and the installation of the fendering system and bollards. There is a 17-meter wide span between the new wharf and the existing Rodney Marginal Wharf, and this connection will be made with the piled deck structure with the retaining wall behind it, thereby creating the new 345-meter long berth. Moving away from the new wharf for a moment, enhancements to the main channel are now underway. The channel depth is being increased by 1.1 meters and the width by 40 meters. This will allow larger and deeper draft ships to access the new terminal, plus provide enhanced safety for all sizes and classes of vessels that use the inner harbor, including Courtney Bay. I would now like to show an illustration of the main components of the project, due for final completion in 2023. The key asset would be the new wharf at 345 meters long, with the depth alongside of 17.1 meters at low water. Also to note is the new intermodal yard located on the back area of the terminal. This new rail configuration, combined with the addition of 8,000 feet of rail, will provide many capacity and efficiency advantages. A portion of this work will be carried out in the coming months. Also of note will be a significantly modified truck entrance for added capacity and efficiency. The combination of these strategic assets will create an overall terminal capacity which is estimated at 300,000 TEUs per annum. In closing, I would mention that the port and its stakeholders are exploring options to further increase terminal capacity by infilling the former slip berths located behind the new wharf. This would create an additional 18 acres on terminal and allow terminal capacity to reach 800,000 TEUs per annum. We would like to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of all contractors, consultants, and staff that have contributed to the safe execution of these project components.
Again, thank you very much, Chris, for that very kind introduction. This is my first opportunity as president of the Canadian Maritime Law Association, my first public-facing duty, actually, to bring greetings on behalf of that association to everyone. Our panel that has been assembled here today will discuss the modernization and growth of the West Side Port of St. John. To say that it's a big deal would be, quite frankly, a significant understatement. I'm told that at the completion of the project, more concrete will have been laid there than exists in the CN Tower, so it gives a bit of perspective for this morning. I will abridge the introductions I had prepared for the sake of time of our panelists, but each and every one of their bios is available to you in the materials that are provided for Port Days. So our panel this morning includes Mr. Matthew Leech, who is the CEO and Managing Director for DP World Americas. Dan Bresolin is Vice President of Intermodal at CN. John Brooks, Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at CP. And Mr. Wayne Long, Vice President of the Transportation and Logistics Group at the J.D. Irving Group of Companies. For this morning, I had the opportunity to briefly speak with the panelists, and so I have some questions I'll put to the panel. I'll direct them to you individually, but the other panelists should feel free, considering the time that we have, to maybe offer comments or reactions to the answers that have been provided. Also, at the tail end of our session this morning, our participants, those that are watching virtually, will have an opportunity to provide questions for a brief Q&A session, and I will bring those forward to the panel, considering how much time we may have. So perhaps we should begin. My first question I'd like to put to Matthew Leech. What do you see as DP World St. John's unique value proposition? What do we need to do differently than anyone else?
Well, I think the first aspect for me when we looked at this project and came in as an operator several years ago was ultimately we first and foremost looked at this as a container gateway for Eastern Canada to kind of replicate what we were building on the West Coast. But it's more than just containers for us. This is truly a multi-purpose port. So when we look at the marketplace, we're looking at serving a much broader segment of market that extends into ro-ro, into bulk cargo, as well as containers. And then when we look at containers, it's really for us a story about building capability beyond just what sits on the dock. And that moves us into space of logistics, of warehousing, CFS. So it's really looking at truly providing a much broader service to trade, to support trade activity in Eastern Canada.
Thank you. I'll next move to Dan Bresolin. What are CN's strategies to grow business in St. John and in the province of New Brunswick?
Yeah, I think there's a short-term and a long-term view, and Matt touched on it. I mean, the facility there is unlike any other facility in the East Coast. At the DP World facility, there's the ability to do many different types of business opportunities there. I think first, though, I would just want to start by thanking the 310 women and men who safely run our railroad in the province of New Brunswick and do a great job every single day on the 660 route miles that we cover. We're very, very strong in the province of New Brunswick, and we look forward to working with Matt on new options. So short term, I mean, we moved some domestic boxes in there yesterday as a trial, just to see how it goes. Short term, first of all, thanks, Matt, to you and your team, JC and Terry, on lifting those boxes for us. I think there's a domestic opportunity for us to start working in that terminal. I mean, you put domestic boxes right on the dock. Next thing you know, you're talking about things like transloading, things like moving things inland, doing some different things logistically. I mean, doing the same old thing is not going to work. I think doing things uniquely different for the future for the shippers, I think, is something that we'll work closely with. And we got a long relationship with DP World on those types of things. Long term, big ships, deeper water, more crane power, more more ability to do larger ships. I mean, that changes the whole game. That changes your strings. It changes the customers you can talk to, the customers you can go after. And I think from our standpoint, nothing but upside here.
Thank you. To John Brooks, with the CMQ acquisition and new route access to St. John, what does CP think about the strategic access to the port?
Yeah, no, let me first start off by saying thank you, Paul, and thank you to the port for inviting CP to join this event. I can tell you from the moment we announced our acquisition of the CMQ and really our venture to get back into St. John, there's been just overwhelming support from the community, from business leaders, from certainly Matt and Wayne and others, frankly, all who support trade in Canada and across North America. It was a highly strategic decision for us. All you gotta do is look at a map. Our competition touches Dan and his group touch a number of different ports, and CP hadn't been in the Maritimes for quite some time, actually 25 years effectively. And the CMQ presented an opportunity through ultimately partnering with the NBSR and DP World to reintroduce CP to that part of the world. And I can tell you, we're hungry to grow. We're hungry to grow our presence in New Brunswick. And there's one way to say it. We're not conflicted. We got all our chips in the middle. We will be successful as the Port of St. John is successful on the East Coast of Canada. So ultimately, we're super excited to be back, and I think we're already putting pucks in the net.
Thank you. For Wayne Power, could you tell us about the Transportation and Logistics Division at JDI, and how important is a project like the Port of St. John and its long-term impact to a company like JD Irving?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. And again, like John and Dan and Matt have said, we're delighted to have an opportunity to participate today. The Transportation and Logistics Division at JDI that I run is comprised of 10 companies. They operate in 4 segments: road, rail, marine, and service sectors. There are 2 trucking companies, RST and Sunbury, and I'll make note of the ones that are significant at the Port of St. John. So Sunbury provides a drayage service to the Port of St. John. It's an important part of our business. We have 3 short line railways, 2 in Maine and 1 in New Brunswick. And obviously the NB Southern Railway is the short line that services the Port of St. John. We have 3 marine companies. Atlantic Towing provides Harbour, tug, and berthage services to the Port of St. John, as well as other ports in Atlantic Canada. We have Harbour Development, which is our dredging business, which provides dredging services to the Port of St. John. And lastly, we have Kent Line, which is a ship agency business located here in St. John. And then finally, we have two other service companies, JDI Logistics, a non-asset-based 3PL, and Universal Truck and Trailer, a Freightliner dealership. The point I really want to make is the Port of St. John is a very important customer of ours and a very important node of the supply chain. And as obviously we have a fair amount of activity there with our businesses. Growth at the Port of St. John, obviously with the number of businesses that we have that service both the port and customers that call on there, growth there is important for us because it obviously means that the business is going to increase. But there's another aspect for JDI that's important. We are also a big shipper in some of our other businesses out of the Port of St. John. And, those businesses like our pulp and paper business ship globally, and having options at the Port of St. John that are close to our mill and our mills is very important for us. And it's not just important for JDI, it's important for all shippers in the province of New Brunswick who are looking for supply chain solutions that will make them competitive.
Thank you, Wayne. Back to Matt, please. Based on DP World's experience operating terminals globally, how would you characterize the importance of stakeholders working collaboratively to ensure a sustainable and efficient supply chain?
Well, I think from a DP World perspective, this kind of opportunity is not unique. And really our success is not defined by what we do, it's by how we collaborate with other stakeholders and to serve a broader objective. And this is a great example of, excuse me, of what I would call very active stakeholder collaboration between both the Port of St. John, DP World as an operator, and all of the other parties that are connecting into the port as a node. If any one of us fails, we're not able to serve the ultimate goal, which is serving trade effectively. So really, the success of this type of project, where there's a very large scale investment through different levels of government support, as well as individual stakeholders like the operating partners, is truly remarkable, and only works when we all have a collective objective. And our clear objective here is providing and building a true gateway in New Brunswick, and that is really what we're doing here today.
To John Brooks, with the port's modernization project, what are the opportunities that you see between CP and Port St. John?
Yeah, no, thanks, Paul. So, when we acquired the CMQ, we were very vocal about our desire to immediately invest capital and inject capital into, not only the acquisition, but also to our rail line, to customs locations. We'll essentially be spending over $270 million on infrastructure and our capabilities to create this, what I consider to be a super highway. We've got the shortest, most direct route from St. John to the west, over to Montreal, down to Toronto, into Chicago, effectively in under 3 days. We think that ultimately provides, the port in terms of its capabilities, and DP in terms of all the things Matt described in terms of logistics and in creating those solutions, partnered with the superhighway to the west, a competitive advantage in the marketplace. We've been pretty vocal around, when we looked at the acquisition initially, the growth opportunities that existed there were pretty basic until we got under the covers and really began to work with the key stakeholders in St. John. And now we see this opportunity in the modernization and then frankly the enhanced modernization, unlocking well in excess of $100 million of new growth for CP coming out of this region. So it continues to be, I would say, top of our list in terms of opportunities as we look to the coming years to continue to grow our franchise.
Thank you, John. That's a good segue to my question for Dan. How does CN view the $205 million West Side Port Modernization project for volume growth, short-term and long-term?
Yeah, okay. So, we talked a bit about it in the last question. Short term, it's applying new products like domestic and things like that we can go in there. We love to compete every single day. We bring it every day. When you talk about our network and our ability, we may be a few miles longer, but I like it to, you can drive through the city and hit all the stoplights, or you can go up to the highway and you can go fast. So we can run 14,000 foot trains. We can run fast trains. We have one border crossing, Sarnia Port Huron Tunnel. full high double stack, rail vacuous portal, live lift, dedicated crane on site to pick the boxes off to be inspected, full central examination station on site, fumigation nearby. It's quite a facility that we've got there in order to enable that kind of growth. So, I mean, short term, we work hard to uncover the opportunities. We pre-sell in advance of the Q3 opening of the new capacity. We work with our customers to find new business and new opportunities for the future. And long term, we've got the capacity in the East Coast to grow and grow our franchise with Port of St. John and DP World.
Thank you, Dan. For Wayne, does this project lead to other investments in your transportation and logistics businesses?
Yes, the biggest area, Paul, is probably obviously our railway, where our job is to ensure there's a smooth flow and the supply chain is running as efficiently as possible to get containers moved out of the port and onto our partners and ultimately to customers. We have activity underway in several areas. We're both upgrading and building track in our Bayshore terminal that will allow us to facilitate building trains more quickly and more efficiently for movement both east and west. You've probably heard people in the area of St. John have heard about our new domestic intermodal terminal that we're building called the Lancaster Logistics Park. We actually have seeking approval for that shortly in the next couple of weeks. That will improve the flow of domestic intermodal into the region. We have 6 new refurbished mainline locomotives that have been ordered. The first one hopefully will be rolling in next week to enhance the velocity of the line. And we just continue to invest in track and infrastructure in all areas of St. John. So I'd be negligent not to note that we've also built up a regional short haul fleet of Sunbury at the same time to help facilitate the rail to truck portion of container movement.
So there's lots of opportunities for everyone on this panel. To Matthew, what could cause, where's the risk? What could cause fail or miss on growth opportunities? What could you say about that?
Well, I think ultimately, when we look at the completion of this project and then have to move it forward and are going to market, and we've already been out to market, I think for me, one of the key risks is labor and the labor force, right? Ultimately, we require skilled labor. We're going to have to expand that labor force as volume grows, upskill jobs. There's also a component of technology. Certainly we're working with a terminal that, for all intents and purposes, is at the young stage of deployment of technology, and that's something that we need to advance in terms of what we do with technology. And then I think those probably are the 2 biggest hurdles: labor, technology. But us, it's really then about managing to connect St. John to a global DP World network. So this connectivity to a broader network platform is what's critical for us to ensure a success. It's really about understanding what market potential is out there and providing that connectivity. One of the lanes that we look at is perishables, into New Brunswick through St. John. And given our very large core presence on the West Coast, South America, how we can affect that movement of that product through a seamless end-to-end flow. So again, if we look at technology, labor, and then actually delivering the market are really the key risks that we face in terms of having this port truly be a success.
I might just add to that, Paul.
Please.
I think I would have answered it exactly the same way Matt did in terms of what those opportunities or risks, however you want to call it, I guess, are. I think the technology piece is pretty significant in terms of, you think of modernization that we just went through at the port and that we'll be going through. A lot of that is brick and mortar and kind of clunky stuff like that. But there's another component of it that I think our customers are relying on, and that's that technology piece around how we can make that customer experience as good as we can. But it also goes to the whole notion of collaboration, and I think the good thing is, events like this, and frankly, although Dan and I's companies might compete head to head out there, there's a lot of areas we collaborate to move freight through territories. Certainly collaboration with the ports and all the companies that Wayne described, and having the opportunity to share sort of feedback and wins and losses and goods and bads on all those fronts is a risk if we don't do it. But I think what we've seen so far and through the leadership of the port, it's actually worked quite effectively in St. John, and has got us to a pretty good spot that we are right now.
Thank you, John. And perhaps over to Dan.
Yeah.
React to John and other comments, if you will, and also think a little bit about the strategic value to shippers of the CN rail network and some of the infrastructure that you were touching on earlier to drive new volumes through the port of St. John, given the West Side modernization.
Yeah, I kind of said it earlier. The port, the DP World setup as it is right now is different from every other port in the East Coast. I mean, the ability to do things uniquely different. I mean, unlike any other port, whether it's food logistics, you could do cold storage if you have the room to build a facility like that. There's a lot of that happening on the East Coast. I think recent issues in Montreal have made a lot of shippers think about diversifying their supply chain. So looking at other options to do things differently. I think about automotive logistics and things like that, where you could work on the dock and do things differently. So, I mean, it really comes down to coming up with a value proposition for the ocean carrier, but more so for the BCO, so that we can do things, uniquely different and build a product that's completely different than what's available out there today.
And perhaps I throw it over to Wayne. You've heard the discussion about technology and so on, and perhaps I'd ask you to comment on what work is underway in your transportation and logistics businesses regarding digitizing your operations, and how could this project align with that work?
Well, Paul, we've had a full digital transformation strategy unfolding across all of our businesses in the transportation and logistics division for really almost 3.5 years now, and it's dramatically changing the way we do business and providing significant productivity improvement. I think the next step for us is to extend what we're doing with the customers we have into the supply chain ecosystem, which includes the Port of St. John. And the use of GIS and data and analytics, sensing technology, all those applications will improve container flow, reduce truck wait time, increase train velocity, predict failures in advance so that we're all more efficient. Things like the use of mobile apps and the portals will allow for information flow to be different than it is today. And all of this leads to less congestion, more improved scheduling, and a more seamless supply chain for our customers. And I think our ability to work with Matt and his team and Jim and his team will be very significant. And we actually have work going on today. We have an operating group with between ourselves and the port and DP World working on these very, very things to help make the port as efficient as it possibly can be.
Perhaps just touch over to Matt, please, to Matthew. Listening to the your fellow panel members, what does this network and what does the development of the west side of the Port of St. John mean to DP World?
Well, it's a key aspect of what is a broader Canadian strategy. But really, for me, I want to kind of touch back to this whole perspective of we're trying to create better and more seamless opportunities for BCOs to access global marketplace. That's really what the entire development is trying to accomplish through the involvement of this broad stakeholder group. We are simply looking at today in 2021 and coming out of COVID. Supply chains are severely disrupted. And really this presents new opportunities for BCOs to look at how they are managing trade flows through ports internationally, and can relook at their entire supply chain and make choices that ultimately may provide better solutions in the long term to create sustainable businesses. Where today, we are effectively operating what I call supply chain chaos, and so we're coming really to market at the right time for people to take a new look at how they want to access global marketplace and engage in trade.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. And perhaps over to Dan, given Matthew's comments, can you comment on the current state of international shipping and the many issues surrounding container supply and ship schedule reliability?
Yeah, I mean, Matt laid it out there pretty good. I mean, the world's completely changed, since the beginning of the pandemic, and we went from worrying about whether ocean carriers would survive to reading about record profits happening with the ocean carriers all within 6 to 8 months. So, I mean, it makes for a whole different complexity to the ocean carriers game now. They can do different things. They can invest differently. When ships are tight and containers are tight, they have to look for different options to move their goods. And transloading at the port level or within a port city, doing logistics completely different, putting it into a domestic supply chain. I mean, that's something that is going to grow, and having their asset back as soon as possible is something that they want. So, I mean, the world's completely different than what it was a year and a half ago. And, right now it's about building the best mousetrap in order to attract the business through the port, and digital connectivity, logistics on dock, all those types of things, are going to be the new norm here as we move forward. So, I mean, very exciting times, and very different times than what I've been used to in the international business since 2009.
Thank you, Dan. John, if I could to you, what makes CP service offerings unique, taking the modernization project into account?
Yeah, so no, I appreciate the question, Paul. I think it's all the things that the panel has touched on in various pieces, and packaging it in up to a total product. I think Dan spoke to it in terms of what his railroad offers, and Matt in terms of the terminal, and Wayne in his various touch points. Our reentry into St. John is about creating that product that can provide another option to the shipping world for imports and exports. And you know what? It's not just sort of this first phase. We're super excited about the turnkey opportunity of this enhanced modernization. I can tell you, it wasn't 5 days after we announced the acquisition of the CMQ, we were banging on Jim Quinn's door, and Matt's and Wayne's and others, saying we need more. 300,000 TEU not enough. We see a vision. It's 800,000 TEU, and how do we come together and enable it? And really, this is what this enhanced modernization is going to do. It's going to not only put St. John a giant trade flow dot on the map, it's going to make it a game changer. And the trade flows that Dan talked about, and the nearshoring opportunities that I think are only going to continue to present opportunities and shifts from potentially the east coast of the U.S., similar to maybe what we've seen, some shifting out of the west coast of the U.S. up into Vancouver and Rupert and other places. I think that opportunity presents itself in pretty significant levels also for St. John. So we're excited about all those opportunities, and really St. John presents a unique opportunity that I think can get you to that capacity level for the growth. And it's essentially, as you look at the other options out there in the marketplace, this is a turnkey project that environmentally is friendlier than other options. It's relatively I say this candidly a little bit, inexpensive to do it relative to a lot of the other options out there, and it's going to unlock a heck of a lot of growth for that region.
Paul, I just want to jump in because I think, John touches a point that really is a great segue to a conversation that this project is unique in that it, while it's upgrading the physical infrastructure of the existing port and lays a foundation to have a 300,000 TEUs capacity, what it actually really does, it builds a potential capacity bank to go to 800 or even more. So what sits there is this latent opportunity with some incremental investment as demand materializes for us collectively as stakeholders to continue to invest to build out the size of that pipeline, if you will, and that gateway. So it really is unique in that sense that it's not just the modernization that happens today, but it's really building something that has capacity to grow to continue to meet demand for the future.
I've heard it said that the J.D. Irving group of companies are like Wayne Gretzky. They don't just see where the puck is, they see where the puck is going. And so they always respond to those opportunities. Perhaps, Wayne, you could touch on what some of your panelists have just said, but also I'm interested in the decarbonization and lower carbon future that is part of the equation here. And perhaps in your comments, you could touch on how this project is impacting this.
Sure. Well, like everybody else, we're obviously very interested in the Port of St. John growing. As I mentioned previously, that's business for us. We think it's really can become an important node of the supply chain globally, and has a big opportunity to grow and provide access for our shippers inside JDI to other markets, as well as business opportunities for us. On the decarbonization piece, we're in both the trucking and rail business. But quite frankly, rail is far more efficient fuel-wise than trucking is, at least today. So a single intermodal train coming into the city of St. John is probably the equivalent to taking 300 trucks off the road, and with about 75% less greenhouse gases. So the model is long-haul trucking, but some of it is transitioning to intermodal, which has been happening for a while. And rail and long haul is being displaced by regional deliveries by truck. So the model ultimately is truck to rail to truck, and so that is going to have a huge impact on decarbonization of the supply chain and sustainable transportation in general. There are two other areas though I want to touch on. One is just trucks themselves. We see ourselves at some point in time moving to at least some of our fleet to electric trucks, and ultimately trucks will transition to hydrogen. So they'll become more efficient. The Port of St. John and our Lancaster Logistics Park is going to have charging stations for electric trucks, so we're able to transport product the last mile to customers in a more efficient and effective manner. And then lastly, I'd just say we have a ton of stuff going on today in our digital work as well, regarding the application of sensing technology, analytics, which ultimately is leading us to both machine learning and artificial intelligence that we can apply to our rail and trucking fleet. So we're really excited about our capability to decarbonize ourselves going forward and make the supply chain much more efficient.
Thank you, Wayne. And Dan, I saw you nodding, and we're getting close to our Q&A session, so perhaps offer you an opportunity to comment.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that Wayne brought up sustainability and carbon footprint. I mean, that's something that should be part of every discussion we have. I just wanted to kind of jump on Matt and John's previous comments. We look at it from our level, and we really do need to build a product that is connected between the ship, the port operator, and the railroad. And jump to 10,000 feet, New York, I mean, they're adding capacity. They want to grow their inland Midwest business. Georgia ports in Savannah, they want to grow. They're investing heavily in their business. Norfolk investing heavily in their business. Competition is strong and wide, and it really does come down to how well you build the mechanism here in order to attract the cargo.
Well, thank you, Dan. Look, I'm going to move us to a Q&A session. We have some questions that are coming in online. First question I see is for Matt Leech. How much equipment will be added into the existing operation fleet? QC, RMG, reach tacker, tractor, etc. What is your expected time for delivery?
Well, I think, really, getting us to the 300,000 base level is not a large amount of equipment. We've already brought the equipment in the form of reach stackers. We're principally going to continue to run a reach stacker operation, working the two key cranes that we brought in originally. That's enough to cover us, to the 300,000 TEU level. The real equipment add for us comes on the back of taking it to the next level capacity and truly unlocking what I call the future growth. And that is a very significant investment for us when we go down that path. That would entail 3 to 4 cranes to come in on the new pier to serve and create that 800,000 TEU capacity. We have a plan for that. That plan revolves around potential redeployment of our 4 original cranes in Prince Rupert that could go onto that quay as we continue to upgrade the cranes out west. Those cranes are perfectly suited for the size of vessels we'll see on the Atlantic trade, even on the larger size. So really the scope of investment today for us has been principally around the mobile equipment in terms of reach stackers and empty handlers. Around technology, the big investment on equipment will come when we go to that next stage.
Another question for you, Matt, in reference to technology, and you've touched on one of the points. What is the timing of a live gate real-time technology for the customer base?
My expectation, and we've talked about it internally, is it happens this year. It's being worked on in terms of our upgrade of our systems. It was really, everything that we were doing was built on quite frankly, on the back of us attracting Hapag-Lloyd liner service into St. John to provide that additional uplift of cargo volume that makes the reinvestments essentially warranted and affordable. And Hapag-Lloyd has made that commitment, and they are calling the port today with the MCA service on the inbound side before they call Montreal. That's provided incremental volume. It isn't working optimally today. Ultimately, Hapag probably needs another vessel in that service to truly take advantage of that port call to optimize the volumes. But in the end, in partnership between us and CP, we've made that outreach to Hapag. That's given us the platform to make those investments affordable. And so the expectation is certainly from Hapag and our commitments in terms of connectivity digitally that happens this year.
Thank you. Next question is for the entire panel. What are the panel's thoughts on growing Port St. John as a perishable frozen food logistics hub, connecting products from Latin American and European countries to retailers and consumers in Montreal, GTA, US Midwest regions?
Maybe I'll
John,
start.
first, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we think there's a whole host, not only in that perishable space, but a number of items, and I think Dan touched on transloading and other things that can be unlocked at the Port of St. John. I think the neat thing is sometimes as you get under the hood of opportunities like this, maybe going in, you don't know what you don't know, but you get sort of the community and others excited about stuff and talking to customers, and Matt talked about Hapag-Lloyd coming to town, sort of the brainstorming, or as Hunter used to say, the whiteboarding that then suddenly takes place and manifests itself becomes quite exciting. And I think that food area, obviously the heightened security of all that, particularly with what we've all gone through the last year or so, I think definitely presents a new and exciting opportunity for the St. John area.
Thank you. For the time that we have for Wayne and Dan, what supply chain assets are required to manage the relevant services from Port St. John to offer shippers a competitive solution?
From the railroad side, we're plenty of capacity. We're wide open. The network's wide open. The network was built many years ago, for an industrial base in the Montreal to East corridor. That's kind of not the same as it used to be. So we've got plenty of rail capacity, plenty of locomotive capacity. really from our side, it's hiring and training smart, safe conductors and engineers, putting them out there ready to go for new business. Plenty of container capacity. We're ready, and you know, back to the point on doing something different. I mean, I think food logistics has a lot of opportunity here, and those assets are not cheap. They're very expensive. So, you know, whether you're moving them inland and you load them both ways with a domestic container, or you can do it with an international container, that's something that you have to optimize in your own network. So,
Last brief word to Wayne.
Paul, I mentioned some of the things we were doing previously regarding the supply chain, but for us, it's increasing the velocity of track speed, increasing the amount of trackies that we need to build trains efficiently and to get them moving both east or west. We are upgrading our locomotive fleet. I mean, we think the opportunities to move stuff quickly out of the Port of St. John in a very seamless manner is huge. On the perishable food side, that's actually been raised and passed, and I think we're big fans of that. Not only can we move it inland, we also have the opportunity to move that into Boston and New York. You know, the Port of St. John is the shortest route to the big eastern U.S. markets, and I wouldn't lose sight of that either. And I know Jim and his team have it. So
That's great. Look, I want to thank everyone for your time. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you virtually and in our preparatory sessions. So thank you very much. For everyone watching, you'll note that our presenters are also our sponsors for Port Days. And so along with Stewart McKelvey, pleased to have such great company on the sponsor board. It's my pleasure now to introduce a world premiere, a new marketing video that has been produced for the Port of St. John to highlight the opportunities and the future stemming from the modernization of the west side of the port. So please enjoy this video, and thank you for joining this session.
Global supply chains depend upon the efficient movement of goods. But we live in a world where big city ports are already congested. Days on dock and turnaround times are climbing, and year-over-year container volumes continue to grow. International shippers need a North American port partner with headroom for growth and the ability to deliver on the cost savings of shipping through a Canadian port. That's why Port St. John is positioned for performance. The Government of Canada, the Province of New Brunswick, and private sector investors have come together to realize a shared vision for infrastructure and supply chain modernization at Port St. John. Together, they have invested more than $250 million to expand our facilities and enhance our capacity with a wider channel, deeper berths, stronger piers, a fully modernized terminal, and enhanced supply chain fluidity. This investment will see us maximize the value of assets like our available land and laydown areas, our foreign trade zone designation, and our terminal operator partnership with DP World, a relationship which connects us to over 500 ports around the world. It will build on our competitive advantages, including our deep-water, ice-free access and our rail optionality, bringing Toronto, Montreal, and Chicago closer to the coast than ever. With Port St. John, the savings of doing business with a Canadian port are not only realized, but maximized. That's what it means to do business with a port positioned for performance.
Hello again. Thank you to Chris Hall for showing us exactly how the West Side Modernization project is unfolding and approaching its completion date in 2023. And thank you to our panel host, Paul Harquail, for leading such an interesting discussion, along with our 4 main sponsors for today's virtual Port Days. Up next, we'll have a panel that features growth and workforce sustainability with our very own Serene Allen and Pat Beamish, and we hope to see you there.